You spoke of Elizabeth Short, you know, the Black Dahlia. And that's an image. She's become now an image that I think has passed through the culture, meaning that anyone could write about the Black Dahlia now. It's sort of a cultural, almost poetic image. And we all have our thoughts about the Black Dahlia. And Johnny contacted me when we were living in Berkeley for a few months. And he said he was doing this video game, L.A. Noire, and would I contribute something? You don't remember that I said at first, no, I don't think so. Because it just seemed to be beyond me. And then he wrote back, and then I wrote back. And finally I said, well, maybe if I could think of Elizabeth Short and Marilyn Monroe rooming together, because they were together in the same city, it was possible that they could have roomed together. Now, literally and historically, they didn't, but it was possible that they might. So I wrote the story, and then I discovered extraordinary coincidence. Elizabeth Short is buried in Oakland Cemetery, which is like 10 minutes from where we were living. And so my husband and I drove over to Oakland Cemetery, which is actually beautiful. It's a beautiful cemetery. It's a historic old cemetery. And I was very excited. I was going to take pictures of Elizabeth Short's grave. So we come to the cemetery keeper's place, and I asked for Elizabeth Short's grave. And this woman looked at me. And I suddenly realized, like, I'm the 19,000th person. I mean, I thought I was like the first person to ask where it is. But everybody's been coming like for years to look at it. And she said, we do not give out that information. That is classified. And it never dawned on me that a grave could be kind of secret and hidden. And I'm sure that maybe you're supposed to bribe them $50 or something. I just kind of walked out meekly in the bash, and I said to my husband, they won't tell me where it is. You know? So we drove around like for 10 minutes to the cemetery, thinking, well, maybe I'll see it, but I never did see it. But I've seen photographs of it in books. You know, it's quite a nice tombstone, and her name is on it. But that seemed to be kind of a PS to the experience of writing the story, that then when the author goes out to actually find the grave site, the author can't get there. There's another little irony there.
Well, I'm thinking about the story, which is in another collection that is forthcoming or is out?
Forthcoming.
Yeah. And the story is The Black Dahlia and White Rose.
That's right.
Right. And it is...
Which I owe to you, because I wouldn't have written it without Johnny.
Oh, I didn't give the title.
No, but
I was going to steal the story.
You inspired me.
Well,
and Otto Pensel, who's sitting here, has inspired me many times. He suggested I write something for an anthology. I usually say, oh, I don't know how to do it, or I just can't do that. And then a couple days later, I get an idea. So I owe...
That's what we live for.
I owe great gratitude to people who give me these ideas, even though initially I always think, well, I can't do that. You know, I don't know how to do it.
Well, I was thinking in Black Dahlia, White Rose, it's a very, in some ways, you can all look for it when it comes out, and it's a group of stories. But that story is it takes two iconic figures, Marilyn Monroe, who's Norma Jean Baker at the time, and Elizabeth Short, and it contrasts them. Of course, either one of them could be killed in the story. And it is a very frightening story that felt to me, because there's all conversation in it and transcripts, and it's so it gives the feeling of truth. You feel like this is true what you're reading, which and then instead, it's a world of fiction with truth. So anyway, I think it's in some ways it was very close to certain kinds of crime fiction and almost true crime.
Yeah. Also, from the point of view of the girls, they were both quite young girls at the time. And the conceit of the story is that the man who murdered the Black Dahlia, or Elizabeth Short, really was more interested in Norma Jean, who was a prettier, she's living Marilyn Monroe. He was more interested in her, but she was not accessible, so Elizabeth Short was the person that he got. But at a certain point, these icons do become part of the whole culture. You know, some strange phenomenon takes place, and we sort of see their images. And of course, James Ellroy wrote a novel about the Black Dahlia, which is very convoluted. I'm not even sure exactly what happened in that. And then the movie was very strange also. And everything James Ellroy does is strange in very interesting ways. I once called him the American Dostoevsky, and I noticed that he uses that. In but it's sort of true, the American Dostoevsky.
And you were, I mean, you've quoted Dostoevsky. There was maybe it's in one of the things I recently read where you talk about the scene in the dream where the horse is being beaten and the son and the father pulls him away, and how it was sort of a vision into the world, how you see the world too.
We both quoted Dostoevsky. It's just coincidental. In our new novels, we both have epigraphs from Dostoevsky. It was completely accidental.
I did have one other thing that I wanted to shift and ask you. Did it feel entirely different writing a memoir book, the widow story, than writing any of the other things? And how, you know, in our art and when we follow things, you were also in that you're following yourself.
Well, the widow's story is very different. It's not a mediated voice like I have in my fiction. It's my own voice, so that's different. But also it's taken from a journal where each day I didn't know what the next day would bring, so it was historical present, like it's present tense. And so I didn't know where that was going. When I started the journal, I had no idea where it would end. And so it's completely different from my other writing.
That's what I thought, yeah. I mean, it also, okay, that you gave me the answer. There was one thing, did somebody come up with a great question while we were still talking? Shocked, yes.
Probably not a great
well,
question.
you know, the only bad questions are the ones you already know the answers to, right?
So I was wondering if you ever had bad dreams from writing, and if you've ever read Random Family by Adrienne Nicole LeBlanc.
I couldn't hear the last part.
If you ever read Random Family by Adrienne Nicole LeBlanc.
What is that about?
It's a true story about girls and boys growing up in the South Bronx in the 80s and being involved in the drug crime.
I've definitely heard the title.
Yeah.
I heard about it. No, I haven't read that.
But you were asking Joyce about dreams, and when one deals with dark subject matter, if it invades their psyche, is that sort of what you're saying?
Well, the causality is probably the other way around, that you're writing certain things because you've had these dreams, which you may not remember. But if there's a certain facility in the writing, maybe because it's coming from a dream memory. We have dreams all the time. Some people think that the dream's going on while we're conscious, but they're subterranean, and we're not aware of them. If you sit and daydream out a window, some strange things come in your head. Well, where do they come from? This is sort of subconscious level, where there's sort of a teemingness or a boil. It's kind of at a boil, and random images come up. But then when we fall asleep, the conscious self dissolves, and there isn't anybody to stop them. So they just sort of come up, and they're completely unpredictable. And dreams, I think, have some logic and narrative, and I think they have some meaning, but the meaning is very elusive. And we could maybe see more meaning in other people's dreams when they tell us than in our own, because they're like riddles, you know. Where it's like a mirror that's really close to your face. You can't see your own face because it's just too close. So dreams are like that. But The Mud Woman came out of a dream. It's my only novel that came literally out of a dream vision of this woman whose skin, she's covered some sort of strange makeup that's going brown, and it's discolored, and she's distraught. And I saw her at a mahogany table, a very expensive looking table. And what is this woman doing there? She looked very, very sad. And when I woke up, it was a powerful dream, and I thought I would try to investigate why I had that dream and who this person could be. Obviously some form of myself, because all my dreams are about us, but I didn't see the literal connection. So I had to construct a whole life for her, and I gave her part of the life of my grandmother, I mentioned. But I think that those of us who have very interesting and powerful dreams are really given a lot of momentum for writing. Do you have dreams that are kind of?
I have terrible dreams, lots of terrible dreams that wake me up and terrorize me.
Oh.
Yeah. I'll call it. I wanted to ship, I don't even know why that's funny. And ask you, because of the crime fiction, the Rosamund Smith, and why you chose a pseudonym. And I know you've done so many things with, taking on so many different literary forms in your work, from Gothic novels to family sagas to, and that, it's interesting to me when I read them. I sort of know that you're experimenting with form, but the books don't read as an experiment. They read as these alive books. So why the pseudonym and with those particular genre books?
Well, I had two pseudonyms. One was Rosamund Smith and the other was Lauren Kelly. And I sort of use the past tense because I don't think I'm doing that anymore. I think I have all I can do to write my own books now. Well, Rosamund Smith began a long time ago. I wanted to write a novel that was short sentences, short paragraphs, short chapters, short novel. I wanted it to move very fast. I wanted it to be like a movie. And I knew that if I published it under my own name, the editors and reviewers and everybody would compare it to my other writing. And they'd say, oh, this is tiny and slight and we don't like this. Or it would be a detrimental experience. But if my name was not connected with it and they just read the book by itself, they would be making comparisons to anybody because it was going to be a new book. And so I had the idea of writing under a pseudonym. And it didn't turn out well because I was outed. But I think the idea was exciting. I was very excited. I had already published about 20 books, let's say, and I thought it was time to begin again with a new identity. And it was something so thrilling. Like sometimes I tell my students to write under a new identity, like a young man to write from the point of view of a woman, and a woman from a man's point of view, and they have wonderful, wonderful results with me.
Yeah. But you were outed right away before the book went.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I never found out how that happened. Nobody ever, it was in Liz Smith's gossip column. Now, some of you may have heard me say this before because you may have been in the audience before, but I was so excited about this. I also had a new agent, a friend who sort of lived 1 mile away from me. And then the phone rang, and it was my real agent. An older woman. Now, I was younger then, and so everybody was older than I was. So I had an older agent, older editor. They were like my parents. And this woman was gasping. She said, Joyce, I read this Liz Smith column. How could you? And I was so ashamed, and I stammered, and I actually at that point couldn't remember why I'd done it. I don't know what I said. I apologized. I really wanted to hide under my desk. I was so humiliated. And then I don't know how I handled it. I hung up. And then about 8 minutes later, the phone rang again. And there was no caller ID in those days. So you kind of just, you have no idea, and you picked it up. And it was my editor, who was this Billy Abrahams, who was a renowned New York editor. He was beloved, and I loved him too. He said, he too was gasping. Joyce, this can't be true. We're planning this big ad campaign for your new novel, and you're coming up with this pseudonym novel. You're undercutting everything, and marketing is upset, and everybody's upset. How could you do it? And I just was so ashamed. And right now, when I think of it, I just feel so hot. And so, thinking of Rosamund Smith has all these mixed emotions, because I was really doing something that I thought was innocent and adventurous, and I had no idea how it would upset these other people. But then they got the idea. The editor said, well, after a while, he said, that's okay, you can write under the name Rosamund Smith, but I'll publish it. Because the first one was published by Random House. It was accepted and published very quickly, and the advance was very modest. And they said afterward, oh, we would have given so much more if they knew it was Joyce Carol. So after that, Rasmus Smith was published by my regular publisher. Then they added Joyce Carol Oates writing as Rasmus Smith, which I don't like, but I noticed they do that with Ruth Rendell writing as Barbara Vine, and for some time Stephen King writing as Richard Bachman or something. And that's a weird publishing idea. I don't like that much.
But once you've done it,
it's too late.
It is,
It's well known. I think Stephen King gave up. He gave up writing a pseudonym.
Right. Lee Child was here telling us all about how he chose his pen name, which was very funny.
Oh, Lee Child's not his
It's
name.
not his real name. No, he. One of the things he did was he actually, being a successful ad man, well, he wasn't television man. And he got fired, so I don't know how successful he really was. But he
that was
said
the best thing that happened.
I know, obviously. And he said he looked and on the bestseller list for the year that he was looking, like 50 to 60% of people's names started with C. So I just thought it was because, like
Eye level.
it's eye level, right? But in any case, I think
That's smart. Wow, see, I didn't know that.
Nah,
Yeah.
so we do have time for a couple of quick questions, and then of course, almost everybody in the room will go back and buy a book. So, yes, Marie.
You have so consistently committed yourself not only to writing, but to teaching writing, and to teaching writing to undergraduates. And I wonder, you don't need to do that, you certainly don't need to do it anymore. Why do you do it? What are you hoping in your very best moments as a teacher to impart to your students, and how does it really inform your writing?
Well, I've been teaching for a long time, and I think the first thing I really wanted to do with my life was be a teacher. When I was really a little girl, really quite little, and when I first went to school, I quite revered my teachers. I really liked them, and I thought, what a wonderful life and a life of books. So being a teacher was my first love for a career. I never thought about being a writer. I was doing writing, but I didn't think about being a writer because you never meet writers. Like in school you meet teachers, but the idea of a writer could be just a book on the shelf, and you don't really, as a child, you don't have a concept that people are writing books. So I've always been a teacher. And people say who remember, and I don't exactly remember this, but when I was quite small, evidently I would teach other students who were having trouble. I would sit under a tree and I would teach them to read or something, as they were reminiscing about that. Oh, you taught me to read, or you did arithmetic. And so when I was only about 7 or 8 or 9, I was already teaching. So I find it very pleasant and very friendly and very different from writing, because writing is intense and solitary, and teaching is social and communal. They're quite different. As far as getting anything from my students for my writing, I think almost nothing. I don't tell them that. You see lots of things that they're doing wrong, but you know they're wrong, and you're not learning that much. It's very rare that a student has something that's so original, and I'm kind of helping them find their way. My students are young. I don't have older students. They're between the ages of 18 and 21, so they're pretty young. And my Princeton students particularly are looking younger all the time. They haven't had a lot of experience, so I'm teaching them how to use sentences and formal things and write different kinds of prose fiction, giving them assignments, and it's pretty, I would say, somewhat elementary.
Do you feel it, though, that the idea sometimes of teaching is pulling you out of your life and talking about the craft that you are engaged in, but it takes you out of that in this interesting way, I think, right?
Yeah, well, the students have problems that are somewhat simple problems. There are problems that one could talk about. The problems of writing a complicated novel never come up in a workshop. That's something very different. So it's almost like it's teaching a different kind of thing. Teaching a young person to find his or her own voice and subject matter, and that's very satisfying. And there's sort of spiritual or moral element to it too. The students, young people, have a great hunger for morality, for ethics. They want to talk about ethical subjects. They want to write about them. They don't always get that in their other university courses, but in the writing course, I give them an assignment. I said, write a story about an ethical crisis. And they come up with terrific things that you know are from their own lives. They're right from their own lives, and they're very, very poignant and very touching.
The last question before we go to the book signing. Really?
Well, I mean, I have a funny question. Where did Marilyn Monroe and the Black Dahlia live together?
Oh, they live together. I made up a place right in Los Angeles. I mean, I looked at a map and I tried to figure things out. And I made a plausible guess, and they had a room. And Norma Jean Baker was the one who kept the room neat. And Elizabeth Short was the one who. Okay, so I think there's one more, just one more question.
Yes, right here.
Yes.
As a writer, I mean, I'm writing a novella right now, and it's based on something, a character, a person that I've met, but the story goes elsewhere.
Sure.
So, of course, I'm not going to stop writing the story, but how do you deal with the personal versus the fictional, even though the two are so braided together?
You mean you feel that you should write about what really happened? Or?
No, it was just a starting point. What really happened was really a start. It was really the spark that got me going.
Right, of course.
And so now the story is taking off in a different
Which
direction.
is good. Which sounds good.
Right, but it's not out in the world yet, so I'm kind of like bracing myself.
You think there would be repercussions from the person?
Yes, I'm not worried about legal stuff. I'm more worried about, personal, emotional.
Well, I can tell you that you will probably have some response that may be unpredictable.
Okay.
Sometimes people are flattered that they're written about, sometimes they're not. But often, I mean, I have writer friends. I have a friend who wrote a novel about a woman sort of like her mother, and it was a fairly positive portrait. And the mother didn't speak to her for 2 years, even though it wasn't a negative portrait. And I've heard of things like that quite a bit. On the other hand, some people may find it flattering. I mean, since I don't know your novella, if you have 19 really positive things about a person, like he's handsome, he's brilliant, but you say he's got a distracting mole on his nose or something, that's what they don't like. How could you do this to me? You stab me in the back, I'm going to sue you. They're just completely paranoid, and they focus on this one thing. So when I said a minute ago it's unpredictable, like your friend or former friend may respond in a way that you think is utterly whimsical. And he's overlooking all this, but he's picking up something else. So people are very strange.